Welcome to the online training for the Integrated Monarch Monitoring Program. Here, you'll learn to conduct the Milkweed and Blooming Plant Census Survey. This survey collects information on milkweed and blooming plants. The census survey is different from the standard Activity 1 protocol. It's designed for sites that are either too small to place transects in a meaningful way, typically a half acre or smaller, or sites that are homogeneous with very few blooming plants, such as a brome field or agricultural field before it's restored. It can also be used on any size site where you're interested in a very quick survey of blooming plant species present. Conduct this survey when monarchs may be present in your area. The ideal frequency for this activity is once per month. If you can only visit your site one time in a season, we recommend going when the most flowering species are in bloom. On average, the activity will take about 30 to 90 minutes, depending on how diverse the site is. First, always conduct the site description to gather a few course metrics. You must enter the day's site description into the data entry portal before entering the census survey or any other data. Next, conduct the census survey. The census has two optional pieces. One is the milkweed stem count. This involves counting every milkweed plant and stem in the plot. The second piece is a list of blooming plant species. If you do this, there's also the option to list species that aren't currently in bloom. No matter what data you collect, the census requires a very thorough meander through the entire site. This is why it's best for small and low diversity sites. There's no limit to how small or large your census site can be. However, ensure that you spend enough time meandering through the site if it's large. One way to gauge this is by tracking how often you encounter a new milkweed stem or blooming plant species. If you go 2 or 3 minutes without finding a new milkweed stem or blooming plant species, you may have adequately surveyed the area. This is not an IMMP rule, but rather guidance from other meander survey protocols. The milkweed stem count allows you to track several useful metrics. The IMMP data entry portal uses the area of your site and the number of stems that you find to calculate the milkweed stem density. For that reason, it's very important to conduct a thorough meander and count every milkweed plant and stem. You can also track milkweed species richness, that is, the number of milkweed species present on your site. Counting milkweed plants can also be helpful if the site was seeded with milkweed. You'll be able to compare the number of plants it established with the seeding rate that was used. And finally, if you planted milkweed plugs, the census enables you to track their survival. Here's the census survey data sheet. At the top, record descriptive information about your site. Remember to complete the site description form as well. Milkweed information is recorded on the right-hand side of the data sheet. Record each milkweed species that you encounter in its own section. There is room on the sheet for 3 species, so if you expect more than that, print the sheet on 2 sides. For each species, count the number of stems and plants. We distinguish between plants and stems in all versions of Activity 1. It's important to record milkweed stems because much research historically has counted stems. Current milkweed goals at state and national levels are with regard to the number of stems. We also record the number of plants because some long-term research projects focus on the number of milkweed plants. Additionally, this can track how many plants establish after seeding and how many plants survive after planting plugs. For the IMMP, each stem that is separated by soil is considered a distinct plant. There are several species of milkweed, like the Asclepias syriaca or common milkweed, pictured here, that grow by rhizomes underground. Though they are technically connected as a single organism, their individual stems are separated by soil, shown by the arrows on the bottom right. Thus, for the purposes of the IMMP, we mark a total of 3 plants and 3 stems here. This is what it looks like on the data sheet. When you're done, you can write the total number of plants and stems in each section. This makes data entry faster because you don't have to recount all the tally marks. If there are a group of stems originating from a common central location in the soil, it is considered one plant with multiple stems. In this example, we have Asclepias tuberosa, or butterfly weed, which has 1 plant with 4 stems. You can see that the stems originate from a common central location. Thus, for the purposes of the IMMP, we mark a total of 1 plant and 4 stems. When we add it to our data sheet, this is what it looks like. If you record blooming plants, you can generate a list of species blooming on site. If you conduct the survey multiple times throughout the year or complete the optional section listing plants not in bloom, you'll end up with your species richness, or rather a complete list of all the species on your site. This section also allows you to document phenology of potential nectar resources. Basically, what is blooming and when. You can use this to identify what times of the year you have gaps in these resources. You can also document non-native forbs and shrubs. Data entered into the IMMP data entry portal are automatically assigned a native or non-native status based on USDA plants database and your plot's location. As with all your IMMP data, you have access to these metrics, so can view a list of native or non-native plants. Finally, if the site was seeded with nectar plants, you can track if and when each species established. Blooming plants are recorded on the left side of your data sheet. There is 1 column for species in bloom and 1 for species that aren't blooming. If you choose to fill out this blooming plants section, it's optional to record the species that aren't in bloom. It's most useful to do this if you're only visiting the site 1 time. This gives you the most comprehensive species list possible. In this example, let's say the common milkweed was in bloom, so we record it in the left column. The butterfly weed we looked at was not blooming yet, so it's in the right column. Continue recording all other species you see. Here are some tips for conducting the census survey. Make sure to count all milkweed plants and stems when you do a census survey. Remember, we use the number of milkweed you count and the area of the site to generate a milkweed density. If you miss a lot of milkweeds, your stem densities will not be accurate. If you have too many milkweeds to count, consider switching to an irregular plot and conducting activity 1, level A, with transects and subplots, even if that means sampling less than 100 subplots because your site is small. Also make sure to conduct a very thorough meander. This generates the most comprehensive species list possible. Don't forget to list the milkweed species in both of the blooming plant section and the milkweed section. Since both sections are optional, you can mix and match. For example, you may complete the blooming plant section several times throughout the year to better assess when nectar resources are available. However, you could just collect milkweed count data 1 time mid-season to get a stem density. And finally, as with all IMMP plant data, you can record to genus or enter an unknown plant. And you can enter it using either the scientific or common name. However, the common name must be what's used in the USDA plants database, or you won't find it in our lookup tables. That completes the training for the Activity 1 Census Survey. Remember, these steps are written out in the guidebook available on the IMMP Training Resources webpage. If you have questions, contact the Monarch Joint Venture at the email address shown here. Thank you and happy monitoring.